President Vladimir Putin's December 2025 visit to India is not just a diplomatic engagement. It is a display of political symbolism, strategic alignment, and calibrated statecraft. Hello, you're watching The Globali with me, Martha. At a time when global geopolitics is tensed, Russia is under Western pressure, and India is asserting its strategic autonomy, the visit became a stage where two long-standing partners reaffirmed trust while silently redesigning their contours of their future. The optics were warm and deliberate. Prime Minister Narendra Modi personally welcoming President Putin at the airport, the ceremonial honors at Rashtrapati Bhavan, and the two leaders later traveling together for a private dinner. But behind these images lay a deeper story, a recalibration of energy, defense, economic, technological, and geopolitical cooperation. Now, if we look at the ceremonial, the beginning, it was interesting. Prime Minister Modi personally received President Putin on arrival, a gesture reserved for select global partners. The ceremonial welcome at Rashtrapati Bhavan, the guard of honor, and the cultural performances set the stage for a visit designed to convey warmth, respect, and strategic closeness. Let's understand the internal diplomacy, the private dinner, and key guest. On the evening of President Vladimir Putin's arrival, Prime Minister Modi hosted him for a private dinner. The two leaders traveled together, a moment that Indian media described as a symbol of personal diplomacy. But we could see a long-lasting friendship. Later, at the stage banquet hosted at the President's residence, political and diplomatic guests were invited, including Dr. Shashi Tharoor, whose presence drew public attention because not all opposition leaders were present, and his presence perhaps was not appreciated by the opposition. The atmosphere at the banquet was described as warm, conversational, and rich with cultural elements, reinforcing India's tradition of hospitality. What about the summit talks? What they discussed, and what is the core of the visit? The core of the visit unfolded the next day during the 23rd Annual India-Russia Summit at Hyderabad House. Both leaders, along with top ministers, engaged in extensive discussions across multiple domains. Number one, energy and oil supply. Russia assured India of continuous, uninterrupted oil and fuel supplies, calling India one of its most dependable energy partners. Both sides agreed to enhance long-term cooperation in nuclear energy, including the ongoing projects such as Kundankulam and potential collaborations on future reactors. And they had talks on trade, economy, and investment. The two leaders reviewed the roadmap to boost bilateral trade toward USD 100 billion by 2030. They discussed diversifying trade, improving logistics, enhancing investment, the investment flows, and exploring new industrial partnerships, especially in pharmaceuticals, machinery, chemicals, and high-tech manufacturing. And they also included labor mobility, and the structured framework for skilled migration were also formalized. Defense and strategic technology takes the major spot. They reaffirmed the long-standing defense partnership. Discussions included joint production, spare parts support, upgradation of existing platforms, and long-term defense industrial cooperation. The focus was on creating sustainable supply chains despite global restrictions. And there is the payments and financial connectivity too. Both sides emphasized strengthening alternative payment systems using national currencies, reducing dependence on Western-controlled mechanisms, and ensuring uninterrupted trade settlements. And next comes the geopolitical and global coordination. India reiterated its position on peace and diplomacy, especially regarding global conflicts. Russia and India agreed to continue close coordination in BRICS, the SCO, and other forums, advocating a multiple world order. They exchanged views on counter-terrorism, regional security, and emerging global alignments. Let us hear what these both leaders actually said. Prime Minister Narendra Modi said, India is not neutral. India is on the side of peace. We support every effort that leads the world towards stability and harmony. Prime Minister Narendra Modi also stressed that energy partnership with Russia remains a pillar of India's economic stability and that India seeks balanced, mutually beneficial trade. And from President Vladimir Putin, he said, Russia will continue uninterrupted supplies of fuel and energy to support India's fast-growing economy. We remain a reliable partner for India. These are Vladimir Putin's words. Putin also praised the deep-rooted trust between the two nations and underscored that cooperation will expand into new technological and economic domains. And let's know about the agreements and the outcomes of the visit. Agreements signed, a package of agreements and MOUs were concluded in the fields of energy cooperation, as already discussed earlier, labor mobility and migration, economic cooperation, scientific and technological engagement, defense and industrial partnerships, nuclear energy projects, pharmaceuticals, and medical cooperation. And we could see the roadmap for future trade. A structured program was adopted to scale up trade volumes, diversify export baskets, increase investment flows, strengthen supply chain resilience, improve connectivity between Russian and Indian markets. And there was also assurance on energy security. Russia's pledge to maintain steady oil shipments is one of the most significant outcomes, giving India a cushion against fluctuations in the global energy markets. And most importantly, the defense continuity. Despite global sanctions, India and Russia committed to continued joint production, technology sharing, and strengthening the defense industrial relationship. The West must be all opened to this. Now, how the world reacted? Let us know the Western view. Western governments and analysts expressed concern that the visit signaled Russia's continued global relevance. President Vladimir Putin's guarantees on fuel supplies were seen as defying Western economic pressure. Asian and Global South view, if we see that, many regional analysts viewed India's diplomacy as a confident assertion of strategic autonomy, maintaining partnerships with multiple major powers while prioritizing national interest. And if you see the Russian perspective for Moscow, the visit showcased that Russia retains strong partners capable of engaging at a high level despite geopolitical constraints. Russia highlighted India as a major friend market, and strategic counterbalance. Now, what this visit means for the future? India's energy assurance. Continuous oil and fuel supply strengthens India's energy security and stabilizes domestic prices during global uncertainties. And then comes the strategic autonomy reinforcement. India demonstrated that it will not be pushed into any geopolitical camp and will continue balancing relations with the West, Russia, and others on its own terms. India is independent to make its own decision. And then we see the deepening economic ties. The new economic cooperation program promises to shift the relationship from a defense-heavy partnership to diversified economic and technological alliance. And defense and technology transition. The visit lays groundwork for deeper co-production, maintenance support, and long-term defense collaboration. We can see multipolar world alignment now. India and Russia are aligned in supporting a multipolar global order where no single power dominates international decision making. Now, where India-Russia relations stand today? India-Russia ties remain strong, resilient, and rooted in history, but they are now evolving into a modern, transactional, interest-driven partnership. Energy remains the bedrock. Defense cooperation continues, though India is diversifying globally. And then the economic ties. Economic ties are expanding into new areas. Political trust remains high. Geopolitical coordination continues in key multilateral platforms. The relationship today is not merely emotional or legacy-based. It is practical, strategic, and adaptable to new global realities. Now, why this visit matters? President Vladimir Putin's visit will likely be remembered as a moment of recalibration when India and Russia translated sentiment into structure. With new agreements, assurances on energy, strengthened defense ties, and a roadmap to deepen economic cooperation, both nations signaled their intent to navigate an unstable world with pragmatism and partnership. For India, the challenge ahead is to maintain the delicate balance between its traditional friendship with Russia and its expanding alignment with Western powers. For Russia, India remains a vital partner, market, and strategic counterweight as it faces isolation from the West. As Vladimir Putin bid farewell to New Delhi, the optics showed warmth, but the outcomes showed strategy. This was more than a visit. It was a statement of continuity, confidence, and a shared vision for a multipolar future. Let's see what next. For more updates and insights, keep watching The Global Eye.